Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome back to another exciting episode of Rip It Off the Card. Good old this show is getting slammed again. If we're not up against good old Star Wars Andor, now we're up against Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, which I think came out today as well. So we're getting it from both ends, if you know what I'm trying to tell you there, Mr. Aaron. How you going, old son?
It sounds fun getting it from both ends, but oh, we start as we intend to go on. How are you, Dags? I've had a busy week. Yada yada yada.
Yeah. No, I'm. As soon as I said that comment, I thought, I left the door open there for all sorts of things. But yeah, so apparently, Tales of the Jedi kicked off tonight, and of course, Star Wars episode Andor episode 8, I think it is out and about. So why are you watching us? You should be going to watch that instead. It'd be way cooler than this particular show. But here we are, and of course, the biggest thing that occurred this week, Mr. Aaron, is the old Docky Who. I know you're going to talk about it tomorrow in the Docky Who show. That's just been officially renamed as of right now. But mate, are you like jumping for joy? Is it like the Miserables were all rejoicing as they were in the Holy Grail, Mr. Aaron? What's the deal?
I think I can sum it up by my son, who doesn't really watch it anymore, said they're talking about Doctor Who at school again, and then he watched the episode. He goes, that was probably the best episode in 5 years. I can't wait to see what happens next. And I feel kind of the same. I would love to talk about it all day tonight, but that would put Dags into a coma.
It would all day tonight. There you go, Mr. Greg. Docky Who. Yes, very, very cool. So don't forget, if you haven't checked that out, the Who Report will be out tomorrow. And I suspect there'll be a discussion about the final episode, which was aired a few days ago. For myself personally, I could not give a rat's ass about any of it, so it's all good for me. I'm hearing about new logos and this and that. It's like, what? It's like, whatever.
We love to see how your eyes slowly glaze over, and then you sort of have a drool coming down, and then you slip off to the side.
See, all you Docky Who bloody nerds all like losing your load over Dockies 13s and 14s and whatever. And it's like, you know what? Move along. All right, so look, we've got a big show tonight, as per the usual. I'm glad everybody could join us tonight because, as we said, the daylight savings is going on and it's raining outside, and you wouldn't believe it. I got a Docky Who picture right here. But of course, we're going to move on to bigger and better things, and it's time for a little bit of this. News and stuffs, Mr. Aaron. So what's going on in the news and collectible world, sir?
Well, we're not moving on to bigger and better things because we're talking about Doctor Who.
Oh.
So here we go. We'll probably talk about this more in detail tomorrow night, but as this is the news portion, we always report on the Doctor Who figures that come out, and there's a big batch that have just been announced. This is the 13th Doctor set where you get the Dr. Yaz and a projection of an angel, which is pretty cool. They haven't done that version before, even though they've done every version of the angel you could think. Another interesting one. This is the very first series of the new series 1. And the projection Doctor there was a prototype that used to go for a ton of money because only a couple of them existed. Now they've whacked it out into a set, and everyone who paid £500 for one is going to be spitting chips. The Billy Piper figure there is one of the worst figures ever released, and they've gone and re-released it again. Look at Dags. Move it on.
Mate, just say a whole lot of Docky Who shit's coming out. It's really, really cool. I'll scan through the slides and we're done and dusted, mate.
We've got the creation of the Dalek set, which means we've got Davros, one of the figures that they've brought out before, but everyone wants to see again. And then we've got the history of the Dalek set. So we're moving through the eras and we're into the Tom Baker era. So we're getting Genesis and Destiny sets, which means pretty boring grey Daleks, I guess, but they've all got different colour appendages. We've got the first Doctor set, and the thing they've tricked us with this, they've gone and put the David Bradley version of the Doctor in it. So we've got the second version of the first Doctor in a electronic TARDIS for the first time, because usually the old versions, they don't put the electronics in. So this is... Hang on.
I'm going to cut you off. Marcus just said, take your time. It's like, no. We want to get through this crap. You got a show talking about this crap tomorrow. So just get on with it, dude.
And here, I think these are the Destiny set. We saw the Genesis. This is the Destiny set. Another cool set of Daleks for anyone who is getting them. And I mean, thank goodness for Daleks for character, or none of their figures would sell, would they? But yes, these are the loose versions of them. So all these were announced yesterday. Another set of the Daleks, and all of these will probably be on pre-order pretty soon. The very cool thing, if any of you have pre-ordered the current Dalek sets from Aaron's Collectables, we got the shipping notice today, so hopefully we'll have them in store tomorrow. Will you be rushing down to buy your sets, Dags?
Let me think about that for a second. No. What I thought was funny, right? Because you sent through all the pictures today, and I was waiting for you to say all these great Doctor Who toys are coming out. There's some figures and Daleks. It's great and wonderful, and yet you wanted to individualize every single character who's coming out in these sets. So I was thinking, dude, that's just way too long. Just bang, 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 bang. Just get to the end of it. Oh my God, you got a whole show to talk about this tomorrow night. But I applaud your passion. What can I say? So. I didn't realize. So the first Doctor, they kind of popped balls that one up. Did they use the wrong actor for?
Well, no, they've only before used the William Hartnell version, but they've replaced him in the show because, of course, William Hartnell died in the 70s. So this is the first time they've used the replacement actor, which is cool to some people, and probably others will be like rolling around moaning. But I think it's cool. It's a different variant. So.
Yeah, see, I disagree. I think if you're going to do a first Doctor, you got to do the William Hartnell version no matter what. So there we go. I'm getting some Doctor Who talking, mate. I'm passionate about it, right? Very good. It was worth it just to hear you speak really fast, just trying to plow your way through all this stuff.
Like tomorrow, I'll be speaking slower, so we'll go through them better tomorrow night on the Who Report. But let's move on. I think we're looking at some He-Man stuff.
We are indeed, and I've got to say this is particularly cool. So, what do we got, Mr. Aaron?
So you look at that and you think they've released He-Man 100 times before, all different versions, but this is slightly different because they've finally gone and done the 12-inch version of the action figures. So you can't really get the scale of it there, but when you see it being held by a guy, you will see that they've upped the ante. I don't know if they're going to release the entire range again at 12-inch scale, but they've definitely gone with He-Man. There's a couple of other figures in the sets with him, and they're going to do a Battle Cat as well. They are not cheap figures. The Battle Cat is $4.99. The He-Man's $2.99. So if you're going to collect them all again, take out a bank loan or sell a kidney, I think. But they do look very cool. What do you think of these, Dags?
Yeah, very groovy. I'll talk about it in a sec. Because I'm a bit of a Master Universe sort of ignoramus. I know that's what do you call it when he's a scaredy cat?
Cringer.
Cringer, that's it. What's this?
That's the cub of Cringer because he gets turned into a cub in one episode by magic.
All right, cool. And why has he got two different headpieces? What's the deal with that?
I think over the years they've had different headpieces through various toys and various versions, and I think you're paying so much for this, they've just whacked them all in, so you can't complain.
Oh, cool. I like this for Mange. Yeah, it's a battle kitten. So what they've done, you're right, they've put the toys together. They've taken some absolutely stunning photographs of these things. If you love your toy photography, you can't knock it. It looks freaking awesome, doesn't it?
It really does. At this scale, they can obviously put more detail in, but a lot of the detail is down to the paint apps they do, and I think they've really got it right. They've done a fantastic paint app on these. If you look at that one on the right there where he's running the motion and stuff like that, it really is upping the ante of toy photography. And you can see there you've got like a Skeletor and He-Man jumping off the back, and not Man-at-Arms, Merman, and other characters as well. So it does look like a very cool but expensive path to go down if you decide to collect all of these. I was pretty impressed. I don't know how available they will be in Australia. Sometimes the big expensive stuff just doesn't come here, which means even more expense finding them overseas, tracking them down, buying them, and then paying for the shipping and import duty. But if you're a He-Man fan, I think they're one of those things you're really going to love.
Yeah, I look at some of the pictures, and it's like they're not. It's like they're actually they're paintings of He-Man, not actually photographs of toys, and they look spectacular. And yeah, I've got to say, I'm very, very impressed. Okay, we've obviously got He-Man and the Battle Cat. What about the other characters? Are they out yet, or just not mentioned at all?
I think they've just used them in the photos. There's obviously Hordak and Skeletor and Merman and a couple of others there. There's the cub we were talking about earlier, and different versions of Cringer and Battle Cat. But again, if you're paying 500. I think it's justified to give you as many extras as they can. There is Battle Cat with his mask off, taking a chunk out of Merman, which is a pretty cool picture as well.
Very, very cool. Now, I think there's a funny comment that's going to relate to this, right? So I think Marcus said, loves Master of the Universe, will stick with the Who because there's not enough room. So in other words, it doesn't have enough space in his place for this sort of stuff. Well, you're kind of going to need it because, as you said, these things are freaking enormous.
Yeah, you don't really get a scale from the pictures, but when you see them like that, you can see how big these things are. And they are big toys. They're obviously aimed at the adult collector's market. I don't think many of them will be under any kid's Christmas tree to open and play with, but they are the kind of toys, if you did open and pose, you can get some pretty amazing shots out of them, as we saw.
Yeah. Now, I've got to say, I can definitely respect that. I think that looks absolutely spectacular. It's fantastic. I was going to ask you, so the price of these things be quite expensive, yeah?
Yeah. Battle Cat is $4.99 and He-Man's $2.99. So you want the set, you're almost going to be looking at $1,000 by the time you get them here, which is quite expensive. Christy says, I don't remember Cringer being cross-eyed. That's after he's had his temperature taken at the vet.
Remember, that's when that's first I know time Cringer's gone, hello. Angie's asked about She-Ra. Are they doing, or have they done?
Usually if something's successful, they do go and do She-Ra because she is one of the main characters. So as far as I know, there isn't anything at the moment. But if they take off, because of the price point, I can't see them being more than a couple a year, but they will get to her just because she is one of the most popular characters. It usually goes He-Man, Skeletor, maybe Beastman, Man-at-Arms, Teela, Hordak. When they get to Hordak, then they do She-Ra because it's from the same universe. But who knows? It's just speculation at the moment.
Very cool. Now, last week we saw some toys regarding to the 31 Nights of Fright leading up to Halloween, which, believe it, is only a few days away. And, of course, we're going back to the good old thing again, Mr. Aaron.
This is awesome. I think we saw a preview picture of it a month or so ago, which was just one picture, but now they've actually released what you get with it. And this is the dog alien hybrid spider thingy from the Thing, whatever you would call it. What do you call it, Dags? You show me. It's
known as the Dog Thing, dude. You're giving us, you're giving the 12-inch extended mix of the name. It's just called the Dog Thing.
Well, the Dog Thing. Sometimes you can be a dog thing, Dags. But here it's fantastic because I think it's one of those classic scenes that everybody knows what it's from, and it's horrific, but it's also kind of beautiful at the same time. So you see all the anatomy of the inside of the dog's head and then the spider legs splitting up. Yep, just in time for Christmas. Well, it's meant to be just in time for Halloween, but if someone wanted to give me one of these for Christmas, I'd be very happy. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing you'd like to give to your significant other and say, hey, honey, I was thinking of you when I bought this. That wouldn't go down too well at all. There's a classic comment. I'm glad Colin's joined us tonight because there's actually something to do with you, Colin, later on, so don't leave the show. I like this one. Take it from someone who has sold body parts for pop culture items. Trust me, does that.
Well, do you know what? If you work at the RSPCA, I think that that's a perfect Kris Kringle gift to give to someone, isn't it?
Love it. And just going to wind back, Moneybag Sullivan has joined us. Did you have a picture of Hordak? No, we did not have a picture of Hordak. So you've obviously just joined. It was just He-Man and Battle Cat, and that was it. So very, very good. Good stuff. What? Yes. Yes. So yeah, if you like your dog things, yes, it is a bit on the gruesome side, but yes, it's the spider thing came after the actual the dog transformed. So they don't, even though the picture shows everything, some things happen in sequence. So the head split open and then the legs popped out.
Well, actually, Dags, that was a version of a dog that's been to the dentist for his temperature check, but the thermometer is cold.
There we go. Which means I'm gonna go. I didn't want to put this in, but no, he took it from both ends.
Oh, it's gonna be
bad.
It's gonna be one of those shows, isn't it?
It is going to be one of those, Doge. Oh, my goodness gracious. All right, and we're going to move on. Oh, we're going to get ourselves into so much trouble. But apparently showing bad shit is what makes our show popular, as we'll discover in the wire file later on. All right, it's time for us to move on away from things and Docky Who's and gigantic, unbelievably expensive Master Universe figures, because it is now time for this.
Useless Pop of the Week!
And on the unbelievably rare scenario, Aaron has sent this through as a useless pop of the week, and I don't agree with him. I actually think this is a useful pop of the week, which is kind of ridiculous because I don't like any pops at all. But I don't mind this at all. But you have an issue with it, Mr. Aaron.
Give it a thumbs up or thumbs down in the comments as we talk about it. But Geordie LaForge, whose favourite character is that? No one's, I tell you. And Pops, what are they famous for? They're famous dead eyes. This is the blind guy and doesn't have eyes, and they haven't got a removable visor, so you can't even have like white cloudy pop eyes behind it. So out of the assortment, out of all the Star Trek, I reckon this will be the one that doesn't sell because it's an unpopular character and it's a useless pop. Now tell me why you think it's great.
Oh, just because at least I know who it is. I don't need the box to tell me that it's Geordie LaForge. So
wait a second. You bag me on all these Doctor Who figures and I like them, and your level of expectation is so low. I like it because at least I know who it is.
But dude, the Doctor Who shit stuff is crap. Kelvin's gone for the thumbs down. Angie's gone, that's not bad. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's okay, but I agree with you. You are right. I mean, the pops are all their black eyes is what give them no life at all. And of course, Geordie has a visor, so you don't see anything anyway. So
I tell you, I'll ask you something. You're back watching your episodes of Next Generation, and a Klingon one comes up, and you're like, fantastic. Or a Tasha Yar alternate universe one comes up, and you're like, hooray. Or a Borg one comes up, and you're like, great. And then there's like, Geordie is having like relationship problems with Leah Brahms. Skip that one.
Actually, I didn't mind that one because she was a bit of a babe in that show, I've got to say. Beautiful. Her hairstyle, it must have taken her 5 hours to do her hair because just none of it moved no matter what she did. I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a fanboy. Okay. I have a bit of a nerdgasm when I see her on that.
Well, we'll agree to disagree. Now, I would have bought a Leah Brahms pop.
Oh, well, there you go. Can't say no to that. But I do agree with you. If you're going to do pops of the Star Trek guys, Geordie, we way down the list a little bit. So, anyway, yes, use his visor to peel spuds. For those who didn't know what the actual visor is, it was actually a hair clamp because when they first did Next Generation, we actually had people at Austrek who women actually had them, and you could actually take it off your hair and actually clamp it together, and it was a perfect copy of the visor. But the only problem was you couldn't put it on your face because it was too wide because it obviously meant to sit on your head. But that's what they used. So we had it in the fan club before people even marketed it. So how good's that?
The enterprising people at the $2 shop at the time got hair clips which were the same, chromed them gold and sold them as not Star Trek visors but space visors.
Love it, absolutely. Oh, good old Chrissy's come straight out. Hate Star Treks, all of them are useless. Oh, cop that. You don't mind umpire. Very, very cool. All right, so I didn't mind, even though I can't stand pops, they shit me to tears, but at least I knew what it was. Unlike some of the other ones, I agree with you. You look at them and go, what the effing hell is that? But this time, I thought, well, it's the best of a bad choice. With that in mind, believe it or not, it was very funny. I was at the store with Aaron on Saturday, and we were talking about, like, crappy toys and things, and he actually said he was going to give me one. And I said, mate, don't do that. I'll just piff it out the car window on the way home. And we're going to come up with a new segment, piff it out the window. What do you reckon, dude?
People think you're being facetious, but we actually are. We're talking about the logistics of filming it and piffing stuff out the window and what will go. So there's one to look forward to. I mean, just when you thought the show couldn't scrape the bottom of the barrel any further, you hear that sound? That's the knuckles dragging.
So, yeah, what it comes down to, because useless pop of the week is just pops, but there could be other things that are just crap. And I thought, yeah, just piff it out this is just go piff out the window. Piff it out the window. Tell us, fans, is that a good segment to have for the future of this series? Absolutely love it.
I can see a lot of Ronnie's stuff being aimed out the window of a car.
Oh, there's some good Ronnie stuff coming up later on. Okay, so we've got to move on. It's all very good, very, very exciting. The audience is not even listening to us, having their own conversation at the moment, which is very, very groovy. That's aggravated littering. No, we would go back and make sure that they are disposed of inappropriately, so don't worry about that. It is time. What? It's better than... Hang on, I've lost the bloody thing. It's better than pick your face. Yeah, right. I'm not entirely sure what that's supposed to mean. So... what? Anyway, let's move on. Okay, it's now time for this. All right, so this is going to be a very interesting segment. Gavin's come up with toss it or cuddle it. Oh, you can interpret that any way you want. So, Mr. Aarons, what's been going on in the world of Greg King's Cheaper Things?
there's a lot. There's been a long time since I've been cuddled or tossed. But one of the things that I chose the pop of the week for, because there is a loose theme that's going through this episode, and it's Star Trek, because it's about time we exploited AliExpress and their dedication to Federation merchandise. And I found some great stuff, haven't I, Dags?
You have. So when you look at this picture, everybody, make sure you look at it really, really carefully.
So I've been looking for some stuff for a special friend that we have here on the show. And I thought two things that were really appropriate was this amazing Star Trek t-shirt I found, which really, really just captures all the things that everybody loves about Star Trek, that I think you can see from it how accurate it is. And I've also found a hallmark ornament of Kirk and Spock examining Captain Pike's wheelchair. And of course, the special friend I'm talking about is Colin, and I wanted to get a gift for him. So these are things I put in my cart and have purchased, and see how long it takes for them to arrive.
All right, so there's obviously a bit of correspondence that's been going on for some period of time regarding everything that's been delivered or not delivered and whatever else. But as you just mentioned, yes, you got something for Colin, so we're going to tell Ronnie about it. So, so for you, Colin, this is what Aaron sent to Ronnie.
So let me just expand my screen so I can read it properly. Dear Ronnie, I have a friend whose name is Colin. He is a huge Star Trek fan, the president of Oztrek, the Australian Star Trek fan club. He has been down lately and I wanted to buy him some gifts. I found the perfect t-shirt that embodies everything he loves about Star Trek, and also a small ornament that will make him laugh, as he recently had a leg amputation. And this small ornament has a character who is also confined to a wheelchair. Do you think you can organize sending these for free using all the shipping payments I have already sent you that you never used? Your forgiving friend, Aaron. Now, I said forgiving because last week he said friends don't blame each other, they forgive each other, or something like that. So I haven't done a PayPal chargeback. I've forgiven him.
I like it. Oh, shucks. All right, so hang on, Colin. So the question will be, will Ronnie, in the goodness of his heart, say, well, Aaron has sent all this money for stuff he nearly never received, use it to send this material? Now, he's got one of two responses. He's either going to say, that's an awesome idea, Colin is a good-looking dude, let's just send it all over, or he's going to say, stick it up, you funk and waggles. What do you reckon he said?
You set it up like a choose-your-own-adventure, but everyone knows where this is going to go. Aaron, I didn't not use the payments that had been sent. It just wasn't used on shipping. So there is no free credits. If you pay for the new items you like for your one-legged Colin, we can give his items special service and rush them to you super fast, and he will be more joyous when he gets his hands on them. Did you get the Amazon pallet, my friend? No, is the answer. I am assuming your friend Ronnie.
What an absolute classic. And for those who don't know, Aaron bought a pallet from Amazon recently. But let's not worry about that. So straight away, it's not like he's got, sorry, Colin, who's watching right now, out of the goodness of your heart, you're just too bad, so sad, son. It's like Aaron's going to have to pay for the shipping of these things. Isn't that?
Well, I wasn't asking just for the shipping. I figure I've got about $270 credit with them, and I want them to start sending me something for it.
Now, you think about it, fans, to ship a T-shirt and an ornament, which is probably only this big anyway, even if you got rid of the ornament, the T-shirt alone would be nothing, right? And he wouldn't even do that. What an absolute bastard. So there you go. All right. So let's find out what Aaron had to say regarding the Amazon thing.
Dear Ronnie, I had to do a PayPal reversal for my pallet of electronic goods from Amazon as the site disappeared, which I did do because I was keeping an eye on it, and then it went down and it was a scam alert thing. So I got my money back, fair enough. I'm wondering if I should be doing a refund for the items on the timeline of shame that the Soul Greg King authorized me to make with all the items from your company that haven't arrived. So are you saying the payments I sent for postage weren't used for postage, but were used for something else? All the best, Aaron.
Oh, you're catching him out, eh? So he's got all your money. What has he done with it? So, now, fans out there watching this right now, if you were Ronnie right now, what would you say? You've just been caught out 200. Now, last time, for those who haven't been watching this show on a regular basis, you worked out there was at least $260 outstanding for items that you did not receive, whether it be items that weren't sent or postage you've sent over and over and over again, right? So what do you reckon? You've pushed the friendship too far. Well, wait till you see what the response is. So what do you reckon Ronnie said? He's been caught red-handed in the cookie jar, $260 of Aaron's money sitting somewhere. He's not prepared to send the T-shirt and the ornament using the money you've sent through. What do you reckon after Aaron has just said, mate, just send it through. You've got more than enough cash. What do you reckon Ronnie did with the money? Well, it's this.
Dear Aaron, they weren't used on postage, but use on customer service and writing reviews. Nothing to add to new orders or for postage or other items. Sure you understand, Ronnie.
So he's saying you've actually paid him. He's a professional writer now. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah, apparently he's getting more than we're getting paid for these reviews. And let's just say we've got to look at it in relative terms. $260 is probably about a month's wages there. So he's pocketed the money and justified it by saying, well, it's for my fantastic personal customer service and we're writing reviews for your show.
Love it. So he's charging Aaron to write reviews, right? Yeah, our fraudulent behavior is our secret. I love it. This is a good reference. Send more cops. That's a quote from A Return of the Living Dead. Oh, there you go. And rip it off, Ronnie. And absolutely fantastic. All right, so what do you reckon Aaron had to say once he learned that his hard-earned has been going to Ronnie's reviews? Let's find out.
Hey, Ronnie, I don't really understand, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. Also, thank you for your reviews. Everyone loves them and says that you have an amazing way with words. I think because of your review, I sold the Doctor Who fob watch straight away, so I'm happy with that. All the best, Aaron.
No, you let him off too easy, dude. Way too easy.
I did sell the Doctor Who fob watch straight away, which I was happy and surprised by too.
Nothing to do with his review, though. But does he believe that? Let's find out.
Hey, Aaron, really think if the watch sold because of my review, then you should pay me something for the reviews. Ronnie.
Oh, dear. Yeah, Ronnie the Scribe. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So now he wants more money. Imagine you send him money and he says, why have you sent me money? So, this is for you, dude. This is so you can write reviews for products I haven't received. So what do you reckon Aaron had to say about that?
Hey, Ronnie, I tell you what, when your company sends me the items they owe me or you refund me $270, I will start paying for the reviews. Deal?
And that's where we are currently. Is that right?
Pretty much. I've got one more response that came just after this, which was basically, you just pay for stuff and I'll write the reviews for free. But we'll go into it next week.
Love it. Okay, so you've gone ahead and bought the stuff. Is that right?
I have. So Colin has this amazing Star Trek T-shirt that I hope he proudly wears to the Oztrek meetings to show how much he loves Star Trek. And a Christmas ornament to forever remind him that he's lost a leg.
Love it. Very, very cool. I like this one. Yeah, I'm with you, guys. Yes, exactly right. You can add in your own adjective there, which is fantastic. Ronnie's rip-off reviews. Gotta love it. And Ronnie's having a laugh. He's caught on. Yes, very, very, very cool. Yes, we did pay him for reviews, which we didn't even know we were doing. So
no, that's the crazy thing, isn't it? We didn't know he was a paid member of staff, and there you go. I bet he's not paying tax on that money, that's for sure.
Yeah, very good. Oh, look at Colin saying, yeah, thanks. Dude, we haven't got him yet, so don't hold your breath. The rate things are going, something like a Maltese budgie could turn up.
You know what will happen? I found like what was obviously a mistake Star Trek T-shirt. You know it'll rock up and it'll be a really cool one.
A really good one. Yeah, exactly right. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, so the story just keeps going and going and going, but we shall see. It's very, very cool. All right, so after all that, it is now time for something particularly cool. It is now time for this. Very good. It's the old Lord Vile's Vile File, and is often the case with this particular segment. The Vile is getting letters from people. Isn't that right, Mr. Aaron?
I know. It always seems when we do a particularly vile file, he gets more letters about it and asked if we can do an encore of the subject. And that is what has happened this week. Dear Lord Vile, the segment last week on kids' drawings had me wetting myself with laughter. Can you find any more pictures that would be worthy of your Sith fridge? Lots of love, Andrea. Now, the Sith fridge is, we told everyone that they were pictures that were, magnets had them on the fridge. And he just pulled them off the fridge to share with us. So she's asked if we can find more. And Dags, I think we probably can't we?
Yes, and in fact, that wasn't the only one that we received regarding this.
Yes. Master Vile. It's nice that he's addressed properly. I thought last week's Vile file was a ball terror. I found this you may like to use if you revisit the subject. Your dark acolyte, Alan Cole. Alan and the Vile have a very complex relationship, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And Moneybags is on it. Time for inappropriate comments. Yes, indeed. And I agree with you, Ange. The Vile is getting violated by the male. So what are we looking at, Mr. Aaron, regarding this?
So we're looking at the Vile School of Art Part 2. I did, there was a picture there and it was my teacher is an atheist. And then the teacher looking like they were burning in hell. So this time we've gone, last week we looked at the younger kids. This is kids that can write a little. We did see the Buzz Lightyear last week that came in a pie, but
it's a bit like a self-sourcing pudding, but kind of not.
It is one of those shows.
You were talking about the Sith fridge a moment ago, which just the sound of it is just awesome. What were you saying about the Sith fridge?
What was I saying about it?
Yeah, you've forgotten about it. The Vile Sith fridge.
The Sith fridge is where all the pictures that his particularly favourite younglings give him pictures, and he puts them on his fridge with magnets so he can admire them all day.
His favourite younglings. The ones with lightsabers to their heads. Very, very good. All right, so let's see what the what artistic endeavours are going to be ending up on the Sith fridge today. Don't forget, there's more about the text than the picture, but let's have a quick look.
So this is a particularly nice one. Me and Dad dance on Mummy's grave. I'm sure that there are many fathers and sons that can relate to this one.
Yeah, yeah. Some reason that one didn't stay in the fridge very long, but
yeah.
Oh dear, there you very, very good. Yeah, exactly right. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Yes, indeed, died.
Mark, come on. We're talking about Jodie Whittaker tomorrow, not tonight.
Oh, dude, mate, jeepers creepers. Here we go. All right.
Okay, this is from Graham. What will you be doing when you're 100 years old? And Graham has put breaking out of my tomb, which is quite a cool thing to be doing when you're 100 years old. And another one there who's let the Vile know, my dad is an employee and he likes drinking.
It's like the old gag. What do you reckon? What do you reckon Mozart is doing right now? It's like, oh yeah, decomposing. Anyway, very, very good. What do you reckon Elvis Presley be doing if he was alive today? Oh, scratching like hell to get out of his coffin. So.
Well, they're better than your normal jokes, Dag.
Yes, exactly right. All right, very, very cool. We move on.
Here's one. This is a particularly good youngling. This is one of the Vile's favourites. This is going to happen to you, and it's a decapitation in action there. And we almost skip over to the Lord of the Rings universe with a big red flaming eye with just, I am watching you. So, the one down the bottom, it's a little bit cut off, but I think that's really funny. Mum will be so proud I got Timmy to sleep. And you can
smothered him with a pillow.
Like you can see, yes, he's putting him to sleep with a pillow over his face. Now I did check out to see if these were real, and that was meant to be him putting a blanket over the baby, not smothering him with a pillow.
Well, so just missed, eh? So there you go. Maybe it's a really ugly kid and he can't work out which end's which.
It used to happen to me all the time. He got
Timmy to sleep, all right, and I'll tell you what, that kid can't sleep. He's been asleep for weeks now. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, I love it. All right, here we go.
And then we've got probably the mum of that other guy. My mum likes drinking wine. And I think one of the funny ones there, when I grow up, I want to be like Mummy. And you can see she's standing on a pole and everyone is giving money to her. So I wonder what job Mummy does.
Yeah, she's a bit of a pole dancer, which is particularly cool. Yeah.
Here's a cool one. Dear Santa, I better get my pony this year or there will be consequences.
Now, what kind of pony is that?
I don't know. It seems like a pony that I pinched out earlier today. Sorry, Dad. Let's go to the next slide.
Oh, God damn it. Oh, dear. I'm trying to think of a comeback and I can't think of anything.
Dear Valerie, get out of my life. And then there's a decapitated person as well. I really love when the younglings start getting their comic book skills and their sort of storytelling together. Hulk smashes the Cardassians. And then you've got a picture of the Cardassians, and then the Hulk turns up and grabs them by the neck and then squeezes them so hard their heads explode.
I'm going to cut you off. Colin just said, Aaron, please, I'm eating. I hope you're not eating a pie that Buzz Lightyear sort of like sponsors.
I hope you're not eating anything with corn in like that pony. I love my whore family. I think that was meant to be I love my whole family, but it came out a little bit wrong.
Yeah, that's why when she turns around, she's got like 15 brothers and sisters. So,
We told you it was going to be one of those shows.
I bet the pole dance kids get lots of Nando's. Oh, goodness gracious me.
There's a fireman putting out the fire in the building with his big yellow hose. Dear firefighter, I think you are saving me from danger.
Yeah, that's right. It's a thank you for saving me. Yep.
No problem. Okay. The one I like the one that's a picture of his teacher there, like 1 + 1 = 2. I like Mrs. Edwards. She is my teacher. I like when we do meth together. I like when she does meth with us.
So clearly, whoever wrote that has done maths, but hasn't done English. So
here's a kid that is brutally honest with Santa. He's probably never been told this before. I hope you get a lot of presents and a happy Christmas, and you're fat.
There you go. Absolutely love it. Very, very cool. Yes, I like that. Yes, is that a hose in your pocket? You just pleased to see me. Indeedy doody dotty. So very, very cool.
Here's some of the creepy ones. I guess when you in touch with the Force, you can see these things. You've got some pictures of families. You've got Mummy, Daddy. I think it's Julian, and then the talking boy, the dark shadow inside. Down the bottom, today I had a fun time with Mummy and Daddy and the cat. And is it the cat? And the demon didn't. And the demon left us alone. And then you've got a picture there of Mummy. Daddy.
It actually says the demon left us alone, and there's a pause, and there says this time. Oh, what do you reckon that is, dude?
I don't know. I think he's in touch with the Force. It kind of looks like the Babadook if you've seen that horror movie. But I don't know when kids do stuff like that. Are they just like, is it their imagination or do they know something? And then you've got, I've accidentally cut the top of that off. It's like, can you think of a word that starts with F? And the kid's gone with farts.
With a follow through, obviously. Yep, very, very good.
Yeah. And down the bottom, thank you, Mum. For being wonderful and not making any more of your meatloaf.
Love it, because I'll do anything for meatloaf, but I won't do that. So very, very cool.
Everyone loves a critic. If I had 100 friends, I would turn the phone off.
I love that.
We've got best friends, me and another really weird little person there. It looks like a demon or Babadook or something. And then we've just got a picture. No, this has gone back to the very younger one again of just a guy and his cat hanging out a bit too much there, actually. And then we've got, I enjoy I enjoy the biatch.
Biatch, yes. I didn't know when I first saw that. I was trying to work out what exactly that said, but absolutely unbelievable. So, what are you trying to tell us about all these particular bits of artwork there, Mr. Aaron?
Well, Alan and Andrew, you inspired the Vile to go through his files and pick out some more fantastic artwork created by some of the kids that he admires. And now we've seen them online and well and truly violated them.
Very good stuff. Out of the mouth of innocence, you'll always find something new and something different. Very, very, very cool. You are right, Mark. It was indeed Jake the Peg. Diddle, diddle, diddle. Good stuff. All right. Well, there you go. We're rolling along quite nicely at the moment. And guess what, kiddies? It's time to put your thinking caps on and start contributing your thoughts and views to this next segment, because it's now time for a bit of this.
Ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth?
All right. So what are we talking about, Mr. Aaron?
We're talking about one of those subjects that seems to stump a lot of people. It's cards and collectors cards and things like that, and there's just a broad range of different ones from different sets here. So high, low, will it go for a whopping amount, or will it just be one that you're going to find in Greg King's garage sale?
Love it. And I go like what Gavin said. Yeah, truly wonderful, wonderful. The mind of a child is. That's a Yoda quote from Attack of the Clones, which is actually quite kind of true. So there you go. You learn everything that's completely in their minds when they're talking to you, and they don't embellish or change anything. I know what I'm trying to say. I'm just not putting the words out. All right, so enough of my yammerings. What do we got, Mr. Aaron?
Well, here's an interesting one. It's a vintage Coles swap cards, and there is a lot of people that collect swap cards from Coles. I don't know if anyone remembers going in. There were different sets. Some of them were actually pop culture. Some of them were just nature and different pictures. We've got some in the shop. We've had Muppet ones and Smurf ones and different ones. These ones are kittens. Everybody loves kittens. These are a pair of kittens from the 60s. How much would you pay
50.
for those kittens?
Yeah, so that's actually the 50s, dude. So you put an extra 10 years on. So yeah, so 70 years old these things are. Can you believe it? Unbelievable.
Wow.
What do you reckon?
They're not kittens anymore.
No, they're not. There you go. All right, so Ange put this in before he actually saw the item, $753. So we'll see how that goes. So these are 70 years old, give or take, right? Gavin's gone for 10. Guy has gone for 40. Rob's only gone for, look at 50 cents one for each card. They're 70 years old. Moneybag Sullivan has gone for $50. Chrissy's gone for 1 cent. That does not surprise me in the slightest. William's gone for 75, and Colin has gone for 123. What does everybody else? I mean, the vintage Coles card. Even I didn't know that they produced these swap cards from the 1950s. So make of that what you will. Greg has gone for $1 each. So it's obviously $2, and Mark has said 50. I agree. It's not the kind of thing that most people would go for, but you never know. Somebody out there might be, oh my God, this is what I'm being missing from my collection. All right, so 2 vintage Coles swap cards. Australian 1950s pair of kittens with stars as borders. When they first produced these back in the 50s, I don't think anybody ever thought they'd be on eBay 70 years later. So how much they go for? They went for a whopping $88, Mr. Aaron.
I know. I was a bit surprised for that one. Usually, this is a bit out of the pop culture wheelhouse, but there are others pop culture from the same series. Yep, William knows how much to pay for cats. So
I knew exactly where you're going for that. I love it. But yeah, 90 days, like it's effectively $89. That's a fair whack for a pair of cards, isn't it, dude?
It is. I was surprised because we've had ones that are actual pop culture ones, and we can only get a couple of bucks each for them. So obviously, kittens on the internet, people love them.
Yeah, indeedy doody doody. All right, very, very cool. Here we go.
Here's an interesting one. This is a Fortnite card. Now, it's sent off and it's been graded. Fortnite's a new sort of well, it's not new anymore, but it's a first-person shooter game that a lot of the kids are into, so everyone watching this show won't even know what we're talking about. So this is from 2019. It's a portrait of a banana or something, so probably quite rare. This is either going to be one of those that's so cheap that you're going to get it for $1 or so expensive everyone's going to be shocked. What way do you think it's going to go, Dags?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it says Shard Brazil. Is it a Brazilian issue card, is it?
It is. So Fortnite is a global game that everyone plays with each other online. It was one of those things that was so incredibly popular, they couldn't get merchandise out for it fast enough. And then when they did get merchandise, the kids had moved on to other things. But it has left a few fans. There are cards, action figures, skins for the game and upgrades and stuff like that. Have you been playing Fortnite on your gaming get-togethers, first-person shoot-'em-ups, Dags?
No, I have not, but I have heard that it's taken the world by storm, and the kids are spending all their waking hours playing it. I can understand why, because when I look at this picture, I can see, yeah, Fortnite is to me is actually quite appealing. Get it? All right. Okay, very good. Where are we? Andrew said 53. Gavin's gone for 5. Guy has gone for 5 cents. Oh, geez, that's no optimism there. Robert said 50. What's with all the fives all of a sudden? Colin's gone for 500. Christie's actually put a bid in at $12. William has gone for 25. Don't forget, this is graded, by the way, kids, in case you haven't picked up on it. PSA 10. Oh, gee, that's not bad, eh? So it's got a grading. Someone went to the trouble of setting it away to get the thing graded. See what happens. Where was I? Moneybag Sullivan said 80. Mark has gone for 100 bananas, and it should be a very, very cool. All right, so what do you reckon it went for? Something that either it'll be appeal to you or it won't. I get it, appeal to you, boom tish. So 2019 Panini Fortnite Series 1 Peely Crystal Shard Brazil, graded at PSA 10, whatever that happens to be. So how much did it go for? It went for a whopping $9,900 effing dollars, mister. What's the deal with that?
Makes me wish I'd collected Fortnite. That's what it makes me wish. But one of those incredible things where you're like, is that like an anomaly, or are people really paying that for it? Yes, it seems some of these Fortnite cards go for a fortune, but I think the key to it there is it's rated at 10, which is very, very hard to get anything. Like getting a 9 is hard, but getting a perfect 10 on anything is very, very hard. One day we'll do a show on how they grade these things, because it is quite fascinating to see what you lose marks for. But if someone has 9,900 to buy a banana card with, I think they've got too much money. That's my opinion on that one.
Well, the gag, of course, is that Colin gets it at $500. Dude, you're like 9,000 and whatever $100 short, dude. That is ridiculous, isn't it? For a freaking card. It's like, oh my God. But I agree with you. And that's what I was trying to say. It has been graded. And if it's a really high grade, some people will go completely mad over that. Because that'll never come out of its packaging. That'll be left like that. And of course, in time, the price will probably just go up and up. Gavin, it costs too much for grading, not for the person who got this graded and sold it for nearly $10,000. They would have thinking, mate, it's the best thing they ever did. Massive investment. So, very good. All right, now it's this dude.
So here we have. You'll be in. I did this because this will impress you in the title. They've called him Grogu, and there is not a sign of Baby Yoda anywhere. So this is a recent collectible as well. It was Woolworths Fixums, and we're going to look at the two collectibles that were kind of the latest promotions from Woolworths and Coles. Woolworths had the Fixums, Coles had the Harry Potter ones. Are either of them going through the roof? Is Grogu an expensive one because it's such a popular character, or is that yesterday's news and this is going to go for $2 in the garage sale? Could this be as big as a banana?
Well, as it is, there were 8 bids for it. Even although I despise the term, would have put Baby Yoda in the search for it, because some people will look for that, right? Because you've got to remember, people who buy Grogu products aren't necessarily fans of The Mandalorian. They'll just know that the character exists and they want to buy something for their nephew or their cousin or whatever. So I would have put Baby Yoda in the top in the description. So as much as I would have been like distressed at the time. All right. So where are we? Did Ange? Sorry, Ange, is that the bid for this one? 720. Can you just confirm that, please? Rob has said $1. Moneybag Sullivan's gone for $5. Colin's gone for 480. Guy, $2,500, dude. That's a lot of Grogu action. Chrissy's knocked a couple of zeros off that. $2.50. Gavin's gone for 300. Mark has gone for. So nobody knows what to do now, do they? In terms of the price of these things. Mark has gone for 100. Andrew said 720. Gavin said the Grogu Fixum was hard to get. Oh, there you go. That's going to push everybody else's price up. William has said 500. Okay, there were 8 bids, but bearing in mind, because the word Baby Yoda wasn't used in the description, did that hinder the sale? We shall have to wait and see. All right, 8 bids. So clearly somebody was keen on this damn thing. Tell you what, look at the size of those damn ears. All right, so Woolworth, I didn't realize it was from Woolworths. Oh, there you go. You learn something new every day. Fixham's Grogu Star Wars new and unused 8 bids. How much do you reckon it went for? It went for a whopping $6. How do you get 8 bids for $6, dude? How does that work?
Well, some of them are only 50-cent bids, so
Oh, okay.
yeah. So yeah, it's one of those that it was one of the hard ones to find. There were a lot of people that had it on their wants list because they couldn't get it. I saw this come up and I thought, oh, this is going to be one of the rare ones, but no, not at all. So only went for $6.
There you go. And do you think Moneybag Sullivan just has to chuck an extra buck? Do you think the description has something to do with it?
Yeah, I reckon I think you're absolutely right. I reckon if they put Baby Yoda in the title, they would have got at least $10.
Yeah, because not people out in the street, they don't really have any idea what Grogu happens to be. But they're being too Star Wars pedantic. Actually, probably potentially worked against them. Oh, here we go. This is about as left field as you can get, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, oops, I did it again. So this is a Britney Spears autograph card, and usually wouldn't slip this in here, but because we just had the 10 out of 10 gem mint one, this is a 9.5 gem mint, so just about as close as you can get to 10 out of 10. Is Britney still as hot? Do you want to hit her baby one more time? Or is she toxic and nobody wants to bid?
You've been waiting for to say that for hours. With the previous item with Grogu, yeah, well, right, Chrissy, yeah, Afterpay is available for $6. Yeah, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? Eh? So, all right, here we go. So, Rob has gone for 0. I reckon you never know. Actually, that might not be such a bad idea. Moneybag Sullivan's gone the opposite, $1,500. You see, the grading thing has just kicked everybody into gear. Gavin has gone for 7,000. Holy shit. Yes, Christy, 1 cent. That might not be a bad call. You never know. Colin has said minus $10. I knew there'd be a popular one. Joshua's gone for 150. Good to see Joshua joining us tonight. Guy, the full $5,000. How good's that for the amount of money? You should be able to sort of buy the real thing. William's gone for 100. Angie's gone for $3.50. Mark has gone for 69. I get that. Very, very good.
You actually can buy the real thing for that. She charges that per hour.
There you go. I got to admit, I'm a bit of a Britney fan. I wouldn't buy this, but she could put her slippers under my bed any day of the week. All right, so what do you reckon? 2011 Leaf Pop Century Britney Spears autograph card. Bullshit. It's graded at 9.5. It's even got 9.5 up there. All right, is that going to make it sell for a fortune after we saw what happened with the banana? It went for, this is Britney. She went, believe it or not, for a whopping, look at that, $3,500, Mr. Aaron.
I know it isn't. I was looking at the guesses, and there aren't many items where you get 0 and 1 cent and minus $10 in the same one as you get 5,000 and one's that high as well. I looked at that, and it almost looks like the sticker with the grade on is peeling off a little bit too. And I just wondered if that was a bit dodgy, but obviously not if someone's bought it for that amount. But it just shows with pop culture and people like Britney who were popular with people growing up, they kind of retain that popularity. And when people are old and have those nostalgia pangs for her and have a disposable income, anything's possible. Now, that's in the other thing I've got to point out there, Dags. That's in US dollars, but I did it because it's listed in Australia. So if you look at the Australian price of that,
Jesus,
it's actually $5,500. So Guy
I didn't even notice that. Yeah. So it's nearly $5,600. That's insane, isn't it?
It really is. So usually I like to stick with local stuff, and it is local. It is just listed on American eBay because they got more for it, but it was sold in Victoria. So there you go. She's not toxic at all.
Boom tea. So, Guy, you got it no matter what, whether you owe money or have to put extra money in. But no, well done. I mean, plus it's a good picture of it too. So, I mean, there's nothing worse. You get a card and it's looks like a horse's ass or something. But no, and this is actually really nice, and the signature's nice. It's been graded. Why not? And the price was reduced as well. Yeah, they actually dropped the price down. So,
yeah, how
good is that? Very, very cool. Yes, and that will only just go up in value. But will this, Mr. Aaron?
Now, we talked about how the Coles and Woolworths went up against each other with their last promotion. Now, we've seen that Grogu didn't really get too many bids or interest. This is what, 43 Coles Magical Builder unopened packs. Now that's like getting a box of unopened ones that you can just sit there to your heart's content and get all the different figures out and try and complete your set. I don't know. Is one Grogu worth 47 Harry Potters?
Yeah, because it's Harry Potter on the front for those who haven't picked up on it. Oh my God. Okay, let's have a look and see how we go. Gavin's gone for $5. Okay, Angie's still got some unopened packets of these. Well, there you go, Angie. Could be sitting on a gold mine. You never know. Moneybags has gone for 50. Christy's gone for 55 cents. Colin's gone for 50. Guy's gone for 12. Mark's gone for 43 cents. That's probably not a bad guess, actually. Angie's gone for 50 cents. Greg, yep, $2 at the garage sale. Even I can sort of sympathise with that one. Rob has said $15. Joshua has gone for 60. Oh, God, that's optimistic. So, very good. Gavin has heaps of these as well. So, there you go. Everybody's got them. And William has gone for $25. Are you guys out there sitting on an absolute gold mine waiting to, like, cash in and buy, like, a third world country or something like that? Or are these a complete waste of time? 43 Coles Magical Builders unopened. Oh, my God, that just sounds so exciting. How much did they go for? Well, they went for a whopping 1 cent. And for the first time, Christy, you let me down. Normally, you bid 1 cent for shitty items, and you would have had this one on the money. What do you reckon they do?
She did bid 1 cent. She bid 1 cent each, though. That was her failure.
No. She said 55 cents.
Oh, sorry. Mark bid 1 cent each. 50.
Yes. So you had 43 cents. That's right.
Yeah. There you go. Well, what is interesting about this, there are some of them opened that go for $250. Ron in the Ron in the Yuletide ball.
Hang on,
Sorry.
I'm going to cut you off. Christy, you've got to do your best Darth Vader from Revenge of the Sith. No! Sorry, dude. Go for it.
So some of these go for quite a bit of money. There is one that is Ron in the Yuletide ball gown that goes for $250. So you could potentially buy all of these, open them up, and they're worth more than they are sealed. I thought 1 cent was pretty good, but obviously everyone who's watching along tonight has got tons of them unopened and home and doubles and stuff. So maybe they're not as good as I thought.
I love it. And I agree with Mark here. It's a 42-cent tip. Yes. Yeah. And once again, I still can't get the concept of a 1 cent item. As like, I mean, $13 postage as well. Ridiculous.
Yeah, you had to pay $20 in groceries to get one at Coles. So you'd be better off if your kids, Mom, can I have one? You'd be better off going, wait until we buy them off of eBay later, and then you pay 1 cent and you give your kids 43, and they're the happiest kids in the street.
Mate, the world is good, eh? So it's just funny how these things work. All right, well, that's actually the end of our eBay section. And before we move on to other exciting things in the main topic for the night, don't forget, if you don't know already, to check out our socials, our Sci-Fi Zone socials on Instagram and Twitter and all that other stuff. Don't forget, there are other shows besides this one, including the Who Report coming out tomorrow night. And there could be something really, really funky happening on Saturday, Mr. Aaron, which is particularly cool. You reckon I should have advertised it tonight, but I didn't. But anyway, cross those bridges. And of course, Aaron's store, you got to be sure to check it out. There's a whole lot of stuff going on there at the moment. You want to give us an update as to how things are progressing? Got all Aaron's collectibles, Mr. Aaron. Now
with a new left window, Doctor Who's so popular that it cracked the window, and we've had to replace the window again. What are the odds? So we've got we're open as usual. We've got lots of stuff from the deceased estate we've been highlighting in. Hundreds of new vintage comics, hundreds of Doctor Who figures tomorrow. Come in and say hi.
Mate, party. What can I say? Which is a very, very groovy. Good stuff. All right, so guess what? It's now time for our feature presentation, and we are right on time too, which is particularly cool. And what are we talking about tonight, Mr. Aaron?
We're right on time because you made me speed through all the Doctor Who figures. That's why we're right on time.
Best thing you've done so far.
We advertised it as UFO and Space 1999, but as what happens when I delve into these subjects, there was so much. We've split it into two. So we're looking at Gerry Anderson and part one of collecting his live action shows, UFO. Do you remember watching UFO growing up? Because it isn't one of the most repeated shows.
No, I didn't. And just going to cut right across. We're talking about the broken glass window in your store. No car. No, it wasn't a car. We don't know what happened. The glass had just been cracked, went right around. The theory is that if someone put a bicycle against it and it just hit a point and it just right around. So yeah, no car, which is good. So no, with UFO, I didn't. I knew about it, of course, because all my friends are really into this sort of stuff. But I did watch a few episodes. About 4 years ago, I borrowed some DVDs of somebody I started watching. I didn't get through it all, but I just saw enough to get a bit of a gist as to what was going on. So, yes.
It was one of those for me growing up. The first I knew of it, the first time I saw it, they actually showed it on Agro's Cartoon Connection. And I went to record it, and they did this thing where they broke it up into 5-minute segments with Agro and Anne-Marie in between, and I just had to give up because it was just impossible to do. UFO almost reminded me of a British version of The Invaders, where you had aliens infiltrating the government, and you had a task force who were fighting them. That's where the parallels with Invaders finished, because then you get the whole Gerry Anderson side of things, where there's bases in the moon and there's all this amazing vehicles and spaceships and things like that. So this is taking all of the sort of, I guess, film effects they built up using on Thunderbirds and Stingray and Captain Scarlet and Fireball, and using those kind of special effects in a live action show.
Another thing too is that even if you've never watched UFO, there are certain images that sort of stick with you. As soon as you see them, like the women on the moon base with the purple wigs, and all that, you just know straight away it's from UFO. Even if you've never seen any of it, you just know what that is. And it's amazing how iconic images like that can still resonate with people, even if they don't actually know what the show's about. It's just one of those things that go, oh yeah, that's from UFO straight away. So
they're amazing. I mean, they're amazing ships, and much like Thunderbirds, where there was a ship for everyone in different colors and favorite ones. There was in UFO, there was land, sea, air, rockets, moon bases and stuff like that, tanks, something for everyone. And Russell, who's put up that little fact, contributed a whole lot of images for me for models from UFO, but I haven't used them because the episode blew out, and they're so good I didn't want to cut them down. So we're going to have a bit of a model expose probably next week.
Yeah, and the other thing about UFO too is that, unlike the Marionation shows, it was the first of the Gerry Anderson live action series, and it had a very adult sort of tone to it as well. So they dealt with very adult topics, and I think when they did it, some people were confused as thinking, okay, is this because it was made by kids producers, Gerry and Sylvie Anderson, and people thought, oh, it's a kids show, but actually all the adult themes meant that it was actually not a kids show, so it was actually an adult show. So I think a lot of people sort of struggle to work out where it fit in the scheme of things. Yeah,
it is a weird thing because we're going to be looking at it, but in England it was probably aimed at everyone. It was definitely in kids comics and stuff like that. The advertising in America was definitely, this is an adult show, and I kind of think that's more because of not so much the storylines, but it had a lot of for TV skin at the time. A lot of the women in it are quite provocatively dressed. And in America, they're a bit more prudish on stuff like that. Violence is fine. Show an ankle and it gets an AO rating. So we're going to have a look at the sort of phenomenon of the women on this show as well, because it is the first time that Gerry Anderson, I think, sexed up the shows to get extra ratings.
Which is ironic, and we'll cover this off later on. So when you first look at some of the images of the females and the way they dress, you go, oh my God, it's blatant sexism. But of course, Sylvia Anderson designed the costumes. So make of that what you will. Commander Straker was an anti-hero, very unusual. Yeah, I suppose he was to a large degree. Yeah.
There was a lot of shades of grey in UFO. I've got to admit, I haven't watched it for a long time. But as a kid, when I did watch it, I thought it was great. And as an adult, I appreciate it as well. So it is one of those shows that's aged quite well. I'm quite surprised it hasn't got more fans. The other thing is, I've collected everything for a long time. It was always hard to find any UFO stuff in Australia. You just didn't see it around.
Yeah, you're saying about watching the show again. I think the only thing that works against it, even though it's set in 1980, it was made in the 1970s or 1970. And of course, it has that 1970s look and feel and pace to it. So you have to sort of switch your brain into 50 years ago to sort of say, okay, I can now watch it. Because if you're watching it with a modern eye, it drags a bit, and it's a bit slow getting where it needs to go. There's whole sequences of just very little things happen. So, but yeah, if you can do that, you can probably get a lot out of it. But you do have to readjust your thinking a fair bit. So
I think it's the same with a lot of shows of the era. You've got to remember the space race at the time. Often people would be glued to NASA, and NASA was often just pictures of spaceships going through space doing nothing for hours and hours and hours. So when you watch a show where you see the docking procedure and taking off and landing, it might be slow now, but at the time it was amazing because you just the real stuff was at a sloug's pace kind of thing.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, actually. And of course, the bad guys, I mean, there was never really identified as to who they were. They were just like bad dudes who want to come and take organs from humans, it's like, oh, as one does. But their whole background was just really kept quite ambiguous. So here we go. This is a Russell. Obviously, Rusky Babe's been sitting there banging on the keyboard. Fun factoid: Ed Bishop went to Hollywood after the show finished production. Had to take ordinary jobs between acting gigs, and one time he was painting a house, and they were watching your phone in another room. How good is that? Hey, that because he's not wearing the wig in real life. He wears the wig in the show. But you go, that's me. They're going, hey, you look nothing like him. It's like Jesus Christ. And Ed Bishop did actually visit Australia in 1990. And he actually brought the wig with him, which is particularly cool. But of course, we're here to talk about the merchandise. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
We are. I would have loved to show more production behind the scenes, but what happened with this, because I didn't remember having much merchandise, I didn't think there was going to be a lot. And I thought I would merge this with Space 1999. Turns out there was a shit ton. So here we go.
Yep.
So
go for it.
We always look at the comics from this era, and I always have a soft spot for the British comics, especially the ones in TV 21 and Countdown, because they have a uniquely painted kind of style that isn't the same as Marvel, DC, and a lot of the American comics. And UFO is no different from this. It debuted in TV 21 when it was TV 21 and Captain Scarlet, and then when that sort of died and they switched over to Countdown, the comics continued into Countdown. They often did that with a lot of the comics. They kind of pivoted and changed to whatever was popular at the time. The thing I do find about the UFO comics, because TV 21 had been around for so long and you'd already had your Thunderbirds and your Stingrays and your Fireball XL5s and a lot of these shows, I did find they became a bit formulaic, where you would see the same stories from one strip to another, and because UFO was a later one, you kind of did say, oh, the writers might have used that storyline before. Like Dag said, you did have that added twist of the aliens not being known, the UFOs had turned up and something had happened somewhere in the world, but then that was often something that would happen in Thunderbirds as well, and then the Thunderbirds would mobilize and go to wherever the emergency was.
Well, it's obviously a formula that worked, for the previous shows. So you are right. Why reinvent the wheel? Just and not everybody would have watched the Marionation material. Some people just don't like watching that sort of stuff. It's a kid show, so you do an adult show using the same sort of principles, and people think it's all brand new. So only the hardcore fans, the Gerry Anderson fans, would know that they're copying their own material. Yeah.
And what you were saying earlier about the shows being a bit more adult because they were live action and were doing different things and more adult themes, didn't stop them from being hugely aimed at kids in the comics, because I guess that's where all the merchandising does go, especially in that age. Now a lot of adults do collect toys, but in the 70s, it was really not something that any adults collect. You might get some train enthusiasts or something like that, or maybe metal soldiers, but back at the time, you didn't go and collect Star Wars figures. Some of the famous Star Wars collectors, like Steve Sansweet, collected metal robots, and then when he pivoted to Star Wars, everyone who collected with him said, you're nuts. These are kids' toys. Why are you collecting this?
So Rusky Bays has got a few comments, but a couple of them I'm going to point out. He said a lot of the merchandise we didn't get here, which doesn't surprise me, actually, because they didn't realize or think there was going to be a market for it. And you are right, Rusky Bays. Of course, the comics are aimed at kids, so they can get away with reusing a storyline. So, absolutely agree with you on that one.
So one of the things that did really surprise me about UFO, it was an international success, and probably more out of the gate than any of the other Gerry Anderson shows. You got Italy, Germany, France, and a lot of different countries at the same time as the UK issuing merchandise for it, which is quite unusual, because to get a license even in the UK, you have to be something, it must be exceptional. But then to actually sell licenses to all through Europe, maybe it was more popular as a live action show. You can see they're comics, but they're like snap comics, where down the bottom they're episodes and then they've got the speech bubbles. So we've seen the photo novels before with a couple of other franchises, and they did UFO ones, which I had never seen. And then you would get in the TV action on the right, you'd get some of the in-depth, like this that I think that's the Secrets of Shadow, which is the organization in UFO, and you would get like, it was, I guess, that sort of extra level for kids, where kids' minds like to know the secrets and behind the UFOs and behind the vehicles and stuff like that. So you'd get a lot of articles as well as just the comics. Again, this had probably been done with the Thunderbirds, so it was just a formula they were using that was popular over again. So Russell's right. When kids like something, you can adapt that same idea for different franchises, and they just think it's new and brilliant because instead of looking at Thunderbird 3 in a cross section, you're looking at like a UFO interceptor or something like that. So they really did merchandise a lot more than I expected for the UFO series.
Yeah, because if I recall, they only did one season of the show too, like 20-something episodes, and that was it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Well, I think Space 1999 was going to be series 2, but then they pivoted and it went on a much different direction. The other thing I was really surprised, I think UFO got an awful lot of publicity in the newspapers at the time compared to a lot of other shows that sort of lasted 1 year. I haven't seen the amount of media saturation. And I think this is because UFO really did put a wide net out to where it could be advertised, whereas Thunderbirds you were never going to see in car magazines because of the futuristic test cars they used in UFO. You actually got car magazines that were interested in going to the set, taking photos, doing interviews, looking at them, and that would have got those car enthusiasts to watch the show who might not have normally watched a science fiction show. Look In is, I guess, a kids magazine from the 70s. Look In had a lot of the ITV franchises rather than the BBC ones, and Look In supported UFO with articles and interviews with the cast members. The other thing that UFO did, some of the men's magazines did interviews with the women and fashion shoots with them. There was no sort of Playboy shots or anything like that. But as you said, Sylvia Anderson designed a lot of the costumes, and they were provocative and sexy for the time. So they did draw attention. And so UFO hit the ground running with a lot of publicity, maybe more than a lot of other shows at the time, just because it was able to be marketed in different areas.
You were talking about combining UFO and Space 1999 together, and Rusky Babes has said UFO 1999 and said that's a long story. I suppose it is too. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a show that they were going to make before this one that didn't get made, and they were using a lot of the concepts in UFO, but I can't think of it. It was just the one-word name. Russell will know what it is, and I think a lot of that got carried over to here. I know some of the actors certainly did. So,
It's absolutely fascinating. And a lot of the actors that were in UFO had provided voices for Gerry Anderson for a long time as well. And a lot of the cues and music in UFO were very similar or directly lifted from his old shows too. So in some ways, although it was an expensive looking show, they did cut corners by using almost stock music and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that because it kind of gives the Gerry Anderson house style. So you can sort of identify with it straight away. And I tell you what, if you've grown up with Thunderbirds and Stingray and you're a kid sort of and you grow up into your teens and you get a bit too old for that, a series like this comes on and it's absolutely fantastic because it's all the stuff you love but a more adult plot.
Yes, something for everyone.
Yeah, and again, this shows you just how popular it was, or how popular it was perceived to be with the advertising. And there's American advertising there. And it's quite interesting that the American advertising really pushed every episode with 4-page ads and synopsis and watch this show, which is quite unusual for a British show. I've seen it. We've looked at this kind of blanket advertising before for Battlestar Galactica. But what I do think is funny, where we get into the more adult side of things, you've got like some of the actors being the Adonis of the month in some magazine. And then, of course, you've got some of the men's magazines with the girls. And they often stripped in the show, which was quite unusual for what is now, I guess, shown more as a kid's show. I remember watching the first episode where that happened. My eyes like bulged out of my head. What are they doing in this? So they, it was quite different.
Yeah, we'll cover that off a bit later on. Doppelganger was the name of the show that I was trying to think of. So, yes, very good stuff. It's like interesting. Not very often you would get a promotion of a sci-fi show with a character actually holding a machine gun. So it's almost like the James Bond of the future, if you will. So, yeah.
You don't think about it, but the cast were all like pushed as pin-ups and as sort of sex and that kind of thing. And that kind of advertising went all the way through in different countries and even in in fan magazines and things like that. And a lot of these things, the magazines came out, and you can see they were serious magazines. And then on the back of them, that one down in the bottom is the front and the back page. You had a bit of titillation in it as well. Again, which is probably the first time we've looked at this in any of these shows. But as Dag said, we are going to look at that towards the end when all our younger viewers have gone to bed.
Yes, you're exactly right. William said Wanda Ventham, Benedict Cumberbatch's mother, starred in the show. Well, there you go. And also a lady, I can't think of her name, ended up being Michael Caine's wife, was also in it for a couple of episodes as well.
Gabrielle Drake, I think.
No, it wasn't. It was some other lady with an unusual, because she has a not an Indian name or something like that. So yeah, Rusky Babes can tell me, but yeah, he's yeah, exactly right. Very cool.
Yep. And so, as I was saying, they aimed at a very young audience with UFO, right down to colouring books, dot-to-dot books, press-out books, and activity books. And like a lot of the merchandise we've looked at from this era, these are the hardest things to find because kids destroy them. A colouring book gets coloured in and thrown out. A dot-to-dot book, you can see even the picture I've been able to use is filled in, although the dot-to-dot is the guy's cheekbones and hair, so you'd have to, it's Captain Obvious that put that one together. And then you've got the press-out books where the back of the book is cut out to get the press out. So these are very hard items of merchandise to get. Often the most disposable stuff down the track is the hardest things to find later. And I do think they are quite nice looking sort of 70s merchandise. I do think with the UFO, it does have that aesthetic that a lot of collectors love.
You're right. It was Shakira. It's obviously Shakira Kane now. It was Shakira something else back then. So yes, thank you, Mr. Williams. So very, very cool. But yeah, you look at those covers, and even if you didn't know it was a TV series, they look damn good, don't they? So yeah, it's very inviting for a lot of people to say, "Oh, I've got to buy that and check it out." So yeah, it's very, very groovy. Yeah, and it's interesting because Ed Straker, I mean, the character features a lot on these covers, as does some of the females, but not many of the other characters tend to do that. It's like clearly he was the focal point, and even like the women only became secondary for a lot of the promotion as well. So without him, it was almost like, well, who's next in line? And yeah, it's not like they have a range of different characters, especially male characters, that they can focus on. I mean, you've got a couple here, but by and large, they're all in the background.
It is interesting because it was more of an ensemble show. There were a lot of different characters in it. There are quite some famous actors that did appear in it. But when it came to publicity, they used the same girls in purple and, Ed with his car a lot as well, because I think a lot of people thought the cars were pretty cool.
Well, supporting what I just said is all these examples.
Exactly. And these are, again, different countries that launched UFO stuff. You've got some French books on the right there, and I think there was Portuguese ones on the left. And yeah, again, the artwork, what I really love is they didn't just use the same artwork everywhere. They actually came up with different artwork from obviously the publicity stills, although I do wonder with some of the women they put in, the ones on the left don't seem to be actually from episodes. It's almost like Dr. Goldfoot and his bikini machine type models.
I was thinking like this one up here, Barbarella. That looks like a very Barbarella-ish. So yeah,
it does. So they've used really iconic sci-fi imagery to sell UFO, and I think it works. Again, I think this would be a really interesting series to collect because there's a lot of beautiful artwork that's very of the time and very iconic. I reckon this would be really hard to find as well, because I know from collecting stuff from the era, once you start looking for overseas publications, it gets really tricky.
Exactly right. So one of the great things that occurred in the 70s, and of course, this is where a lot of us will be going, oh, yeah, we remember this like it was yesterday. And of course, trying to find this stuff now is next to impossible. Of course, had to do with the toys, mate.
So I think UFO was very well served when it came to toys. And these are some of the advertising materials for the show. The two that I think are amazing there, the one at the bottom, center, the London bus completely covered in dinky advertising, is an amazing piece. And I mean, recently we see buses and we see trams covered in advertising for movies and stuff like that, but you don't think back in the 60s that the red London buses were like converted as mobile advertising covered with Thunderbirds and UFO and all these different toys from the TV. That would be absolutely amazing. I don't know how many pictures there are of that bus. I could only find the one. The other thing there is Ed Bishop playing with toys from the show. Often you'd get actors, as soon as they're off set, you wouldn't catch them doing anything like that. But it does show that he obviously had at least some faith in the show and wanted kids to be able to see that he supported it and maybe help sell the toys as well.
Well, for all you know, they could have just given him to them, and as he's looking down, they go, "Oh, yeah," and he looks up and goes, "Click, done, thank you." But yes, it is very, very groovy, and of course, trying to find this stuff today is almost next to impossible. Yeah.
It absolutely is, especially in good condition. And as we mentioned before, there was a lot of car enthusiasts, and because not just his car, but a lot of cars were test cars and modified cars and looked futuristic. It was very popular in car shows. The car in this is interesting because, like a lot of the Dinky Toy stuff, they did it in all different colors. And of course, like James Bond and Thunderbirds, they did a metallic gold one for some reason. It was one of their go-tos where want to make something look amazing, we'll just do a metallic gold finish to it. But you can see there's yellow, orange, and red. So if you're a Dinky Toy collector and you collect UFO stuff, Ed's car comes in all different colors and all different packaging. And the thing that I find amazing is the show ran for 1 year and the toy was so popular, it was in production on and off for about 20 years. So you could get it right through into the 80s with 80s packaging. So it does give you an idea of how popular the designs from this show actually were.
Yeah, I think I heard that the real life prop of the show drove like a dog. So yeah, obviously car quality didn't improve from up to 1980, which is where the show is set. But yeah, it's an interesting sort of design. In fact, if anything, yeah, I didn't see any cars in 1980 that looked anything like this. But you know, good on for giving it a bill.
Yeah, and then there's the Shadow Mobile or the Shadow Tank that also came in chrome silver and was available in the 70s and then available for many years to come. And it is again that classic design. I think the thing that Gerry Anderson really did with all of his shows was hit the designs out of the park, and they have that sort of practical reality about them that you could imagine that that vehicle actually exists, but they're futuristic enough to be interesting to kids that watch them, and you'd want to play with them, and you can imagine doing all different things with them. So they came in, your army green and your blue and a silver one as well. And again, very popular toy still for a 1 year show. There's still a lot of people that try and collect all the UFO toys, but the next one is my particular favorite.
Yeah, it's very funny. This particular thing looks like an armored personnel carrier. So if you want to do a real life mock-up of it, you could probably do it relatively successfully because of the design of it. But yes, the old the Interceptor. I always thought this was interesting because it looks a fantastic shape, but once you've shot the rocket off the front, it looks really cockeyed, doesn't it? And it's like, how do you replace the rocket unless you re-land? So,
it really does. How do you replace the rocket toy? Because I tell you what, 99 out of 100 of these that turn up, the rocket's missing.
Yeah.
You can buy reproductions of the rocket because obviously it's one of those things that kids lose straight away. The rocket, the toy pretty much stayed the same color with this one all the way through, but you can get the rocket in different colors. So you can get white ones and red ones and yellow ones, and they all have different colored tips as well. I love the artwork of this. I do think it is an amazing vehicle. It does look like, you've got your huge weapon delivery system. It's going to have a huge payload because the rocket's almost as big as the entire vehicle, and definitely bigger. The rocket is actually bigger than a person. The person in the cockpit is smaller than the rocket. So when you saw these go into action in the episode, you knew you were in for some excitement.
Yeah, the rocket actually enhances the aesthetic of the actual ship design, right? So it's almost like you kind of need it to make the ship look good. Take it off and it looks pretty kind of like it's pox. But
it really
yes.
does. I do like they went with metallic green, even though they were white in the series. That's the logic of Dinky with you. But I've read a couple of interviews where 95% of the people watching this had black and white TVs, so it really didn't matter. It's only now that we look and go, why did they do all these amazing colors? It was because they were kids' toys, and they decided that if you make them bright colors, kids will buy them.
Yeah, painting them shades of grey wouldn't have worked at all. And of course, with all English shows at the time, whether it be like all the Gerry Anderson stuff, one of the key things that they all had was the obligatory annual. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
That absolutely is. And unlike most of the Gerry Anderson annuals, which you'd find down at Camberwell Market once in a while, I never came across any of the UFO ones ever in Australia. So I did know they existed from seeing them in Gerry Anderson merchandise, guys, but I do wonder if they ever were released here. Russell might know this, probably not. And then there's the Piccolo UFO book that was released here because I got one and it's got an Australian price on the back. So we weren't totally deprived of UFO memorabilia. The annuals were pretty much the same format as all the annuals, where you'd have text stories, games, and little features to do with the show. You were going to say something, mate? Sorry.
No, that's right. I was going to say, yeah, and when we talk about annuals for previous shows, we've always mentioned how the covers were always really, really pretty, beautiful artwork and all the rest. And you look at this one here, and that is almost as boring as batshit when you think about it, eh? So clearly the art department cut a few corners on that one.
Well, the thing that I didn't realize about this, most of the annuals are from a company called World Distributors, which obviously distribute them worldwide. These are released by Polystyle, which is a different company, and they didn't release as many annuals, and that's probably why the distribution wasn't as great as some of the other shows from the same period. But it was interesting to see that. I didn't know that they were released through a different company than the general annuals that came out every year were.
Very cool. And of course, you got some other supporting books as well, yeah?
Well, this just shows how far and wide UFO actually was a hit. There was quite a lot of UFO books and merchandise in Japan. Now, there are some model kits as well, but like I said, I'm going to have a special just view on model kits later because there's a lot of them. But you can see that they released storybooks and photo books and magazines and cutaway books and a lot of different things for UFO. And in Japan, I do think it's probably the aesthetic works really well because a lot of the manga characters you see have, you know, the purple hair and wearing skin tight stuff. So this is one of the shows that would have come out and fit right into a lot of the shows that, well, the look of a lot of the shows that were already happening over there anyway. But I think we've brought this up before. I just love the look of Japanese text on books and on posters and stuff. And this is no exception, where you see that red one at the top center there and you go, oh, even if I wasn't a UFO fan, I wouldn't mind having that in my collection. It's just the aesthetic that the Japanese writing brings to things can sometimes enhance it, in my opinion, anyway.
Very cool. So Russell sort of agrees with you about the polished style annuals were better than the World Distributors ones. And also that Japan had way more Anderson kits than anyone else. So clearly they were really dialed in, which is particularly cool. And this is something, a bit of merchandise. You look at this and you go, can't exactly market that these days. These days, that's bad English. Of course, sweet cigarettes, mate. Oh, there you go. How good's that?
I know. It's crazy. They did them for UFO. They did them for Thunderbirds and a lot of shows. They did them for Doctor Who, of course. But these ones I think are particularly nice set. I love the packets with the UFO on. Obviously, even though it had a big cast and lots of different vehicles, the actual UFOs from UFO were actually a really nice vehicle too. And they did use it a lot of the merchandising, but there isn't a lot of contemporary merchandise of that actual UFO. When we look at models and later things in another episode, we'll see more of it. The actual cigarette cards are really nice. They tell a story and they have a lot of pictures of the cast and the different vehicles from the show. They're quite a hard set to collect. Like a lot of UFO stuff, it seems to have slipped through the cracks in a lot of collectors' collections, so you don't see it as much as some of the other Gerry Anderson stuff. It's sort of not as beloved as the puppet shows, but not as well remembered as Space 1999. So it falls into that area where it's a bit challenging to collect everything from.
Jeff Rose joined us, which is good. He said Fanderson made their own annual that just looked like the original. We actually covered that off last week with the Docky Who stuff, where some people are, some clubs and/or groups are making their own annuals because the originals didn't exist. So they were producing their own to fill in gaps for annuals that were never produced. And so, yeah, we sort of looked at that last week, actually, which was particularly cool. But, yeah, it makes sense to do it. If they don't exist, you create your own, make them look like the real thing. And the people say, you know, it's as good as the original. Yay, team. The world is good.
I think Fanderson and Gerry Anderson fans are one of the few fans, maybe Doctor Who as well, that have been constantly doing fanzines, productions, new artwork, updating stuff all the way from the 60s and 70s. It never went away. I mean, TV 21 Comics went away, and they brought them back and reprinted them sort of because of fan demand. So Fanderson is fascinating.
Yeah, and the advantage is that you can make things today, even on a home computer, look like they were produced 50-something years ago. And if you can get away with that aesthetic and make it look like it belonged at that time, as it did at that time, then you get it's winner, chicken dinner right across the board. So, very cool.
Just don't put fake creases on it, because that
no, don't do that.
So these are bubblegum cards, and I tell you what, it'd be like finding hen's teeth getting the wrappers and sets to these. And these are a couple of different sets. There's the British one, and unlike the cigarette cards, these had artwork pictures on, and you could send away for amazing things like the mini poster at the bottom there. And then there's some of the European sets that kind of weirdly seem to combine the two, where you'd get 3 cards in a set and 2 of them looked like one set and one of them was a cigarette card. So they obviously had some deal where they were getting the remainders or getting their own print run of some of them and then selling them as a unique set. All of them, which would never happen now, had unique UFO logos. Something now they'll get a press kit and go to everyone, you have to use the logo that we supply, so everything sort of has a uniform look to it. But back then, I noticed this with the cards. Every single one has a totally different UFO logo that the companies made up themselves.
I got to say, just the packet of the cards on the left, as a kid, the color, the design of the ship in the background, and the text on the front, that would be like, mate, you could not buy those quick enough. That is spectacular marketing right across the board.
It really is. And you look at those cards and it has that memory where you can feel the wax paper and you can smell what the gum's like as well, even if you haven't had them for years and years and years.
Yeah, I love it. So if you take, for example, had with the gum packets, put the Ed Straker head on the front, like we've seen in previous photographs where his face was like the primary focal marketing point, I don't think the cards would have sold. But you put a spaceship in the background, whether the ship was used in the show or not is almost irrelevant, and people just went for it. So very cool.
Jethro's saying that they have released all the comics and you can get them. And I did have a slide, but I had to cut it because there's so many. But one of them's all the TV 21s and one is all the Countdown, and they're very good. Little time capsules from that period if you are looking for them. Probably a lot cheaper than tracking down all the original issues as well.
Yep.
And here's another set. These are stickers. Panini, which released them in Europe and Italy. Again, different logo. Another fantastic set. Again, I'd love to have spent more time, but UFO had so much more merchandise than I realized. These is the sticker album. You can see the front of the album, and the first page has all the main characters. Like some of the sticker albums, you can see the picture of the space station there is about 9 stickers that you had to collect the set and put them all together to make one picture. You had the storylines from the different episodes, and then down the bottom you've got a packet, and then the back of the packet, and you could send off for Dags. This would be one for you, the shadow badge that you could sew onto your jacket. So there was a lot of set posters and badges and things like that too, which is always hard to track down.
See, it's funny, every time I look at the shadow logo, I always think of Land of the Giants. If you just shrunk this shadow down to a little dude, it's almost the same thing, isn't it, really, to a large degree?
It is. There's a lot of logos whenever there's a guy in a shadow. For some reason, for me, it reminds me of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. logo as well. There's a lot of sort of, when you get like just a black silhouette, there's a lot of generic logos that can go with. It would be interesting, a trivia night, if you took shadow out of that and put like all these silhouettes of different 60s logos, would anyone be able to identify every single one without knowing what show they were from?
Some people probably would. Your Jeffros of the world are pretty good at this stuff. But you could almost take the shadow out of the dude and just have him all black and still get the same effect. But anyway, if it worked, it worked. That's the most important thing.
Yep, and UFO cards come right through to more recent times. This is the Carlton set where, again, there was a premium set with all the different pictures and cast cards. But once you get to this level of stuff, they start doing autograph cards and costume cards. You can see there's the Ed Straker one there in the center where you open your packet, and what they do, they don't put the costume card in there because then someone would go through and feel for the thick packet and go, oh, I found one. They give a normal card that goes, congratulations, you can send off for this costume card. And then you send off the redemption card and you get a piece of Ed Straker's undies or something that comes mounted in a card. And look, they're brown, so they're nearly new. But UFO is still one of those franchises and that is beloved enough that they can still produce sets of cards now that sell.
That's a bit dodgy, isn't it? Eh? Oh, you two could have a piece of some characters' undies. I reckon some people will be on the top of the list from the very beginning. We were talking about like annuals earlier on, how they're all like boring as batshit in terms of their cover design. Then you get to this, and it's the complete polar opposite, where color is the go.
And again, this is Japanese merchandise, and the top corner there's a UFO comic, and I just put it in because the aesthetic is very similar for the record set. And this is like one of those stunning sets that I would love to have just for all the artwork. And basically it's almost like a little box, and it's full of all these cards, and on the back of the cards it has the story as you follow along, and it has a record you play. So it's like a flexi disc on acetate kind of record for kids, and it has basically the story of two kids who see a UFO. They report the UFO, so shadow turn up, but the UFO is pretty pissed that they got reported, so they come after the kids, and then the interceptors turn up with their massive rockets and blow the shit out of the UFO. But what a great piece of merchandise. I mean, that's the type of thing, again, I don't collect UFO, but if that turned up in the shop, I'd be going, oh, that might go to the home collection for a while.
Yeah, if you're going to go and blow the shit up out of the aliens, that's a real Team America World Police sort of way of fixing things. So when in doubt, wipe it out. That's what we like to say. So one of the cool things, like there's always a lot of merchandise. We saw the Diggy toys earlier on. One of the bits of merchandise that comes out a lot for different shows and movies, of course, is the old-fashioned, never goes away Viewmasters.
The crazy thing about the Viewmaster, I could have gone nuts on this because they released the same Viewmaster in many different countries in many different languages. But I thought, you know what? I'll just show the English version because it's exactly the same as all the others, but without the different languages on. So there was a UFO Viewmaster. There was only the one. It came with the 3 Viewmaster reels and a little booklet. And you, of course, get the stereo photographs, and you can see scenes from UFO in 3D, which is absolutely awesome. Everybody loves Viewmasters. Then there's 2 games, and some of these are really rare. The middle game there, there's a couple of known in existence. The one on the far right, which is that sort of pouch, and then the orange board and the instructions and a couple of pieces, that is actually a send away from a Quaker's cereal promotion. And there is no existing pictures of the actual box with the mail away. They've got a couple of pictures, a couple of versions of the game have turned up, but no one thought to keep one of the box. And so in some ways, it's like some of the other great science fiction shows that have lost boxes and things like that from their history. And one day, because of eBay or someone hoarding it, a box will probably turn up. But at the moment, it's one of those sort of mystical things that UFO collectors are looking for.
When you look about it in hindsight, you could almost argue that the name UFO for the series was probably not a good idea, because UFO now is just as synonymous with alien invasion and, like Area 51 and whatever. Had the show been given a bit more of an original title, I mean, it must be an absolute bitch to say, I want to look up the UFO, even if you put it in TV series. There's like, it'd just be, you'd have to filter through all this other stuff just to get to the TV show. So in hindsight, you could almost say, if you go back in time, you'd go to Gerry and say, change the name of UFO to something else that is not going to be generically used forever in a month of Sundays. So, yeah.
Shadow Earth Defense Force or something like that.
Yeah, exactly right. And, of course, along with the Viewmasters go the jigsaw puzzles.
And again, jigsaw puzzles is one of those things that I think are pretty amazing pieces of merchandise, because back in the day, they didn't used to just take a photo or a computer manipulated image for the jigsaw puzzles. They actually used to get artists to actually do scenes from the show. And the good thing about jigsaws is the artists of jigsaws in Britain usually would make something out of their imagination. So they'd take stock photos, but then they'd add bits to it, which I think is great, because it often is a much nicer aesthetic and crams more into the picture than you would with just the standard stock photos. So the jigsaws are great. And the interesting thing, when I was researching tonight, I thought there were 2 UFO jigsaws, and I found a third one in the series. So I'd actually had that UFO on the top left, sort of the aliens in the forest with the vehicles in the background, and I knew about the one in the middle, but then the one on the right at the bottom of the space station window and the the crew in the space station I had never seen before. And then there was a Japanese jigsaw, which again is the one in the top right, which is a tray jigsaw, so it doesn't come in a box. And that would be incredibly impossible to find, I would think, as well. So jigsaws are great little pieces of art from whenever they come out, and then finding them and finding them complete and finding a box that isn't crushed, it just gets harder and harder and harder. So do you like the art from the jigsaws?
Oh, yeah, look great. Although, I mean, even I look at the on the left-hand side, and I think that just could be a generic picture of just about anything. If you took the word UFO off the top, you can go, mate, it's just a space thing. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's a shame that the word UFO they didn't have a bit more of a different name for the show. I like the fact that the middle one has a piece missing. So whoever's got that piece right there to complete this jigsaw, that would probably add an extra few $100 to the value. So, but yeah, and I like the one on the right. I do think that's actually very, very nice. So yeah, all three of them are pretty spectacular. Yeah,
I'll tell you who has that piece: Mum's vacuum cleaner.
That's a bit that went clank, 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 clank up the tube, and that was the end of that. I can't believe there's a photograph of it and there's a piece missing. So absolutely unbelievable. There was a reference earlier about how the show came out, and of course, like to watch here, not just free-to-air TV, but of course the good old videos, mate, the bloody videos.
Yeah, so UFO did get a few releases. Again, I saw them in Minotaur in sort of the 80s and 90s, and they were just too expensive for me to justify buying for my curiosity but not love of the show. And, you know, I had seen a couple of episodes here and there, but when you're paying $40 a pop for import video and there's Doctor Who at the same time, I'm always going to choose Doctor Who. I think they are a really nice looking set of videos. They all follow the same template, a coloured template with a photo from the episode in the middle. The UFO is quite obviously at the top, and so you know what series it is straight away. And if you collect them, you get like a rainbow pattern of videotapes in the bookshelf, where a lot of them are just black video spines. So it is a colourful collection at least. Then you've got on the bottom right the two DVD releases. They released them as Volume 1 and Volume 2, and then they've done Blu-ray ones as well, where the entire series is in one volume. The top right, there's actually the Making of UFO documentary, which I have never seen. I'm sure Russell and Jethro would have probably caught that at some point, but I wouldn't mind seeing it, because when you research this, it always makes me more curious, and then makes me want to have a couple of pieces in my collection as well. You would never have had any of the videos or DVDs of this, though? No, I mean,
I borrowed them off people, but no, I've never owned them. So I just realized earlier too, we kept referring to the good old Shadow, right? The group, but we never actually said what Shadow actually stands for. And for those who don't know, it's Supreme Headquarters Alien Defense Organization. So for anybody who wasn't familiar with the show, thinking they keep referring to Shadow, but what the friggin' hell is it? That's what it is. So yeah,
it isn't Cliff Richard's band, not in this one.
Very, very good. All right, now we're going to shift the focus a little bit. So that's the merchandising side to a degree, but there is something we do need to cover off, because it was actually it's not controversial, but it was a bit of a shock to the system at the time. Now, we were talking about 1970, so the world was sort of shifting into counterculture and all this sort of thing, and liberation of people was sort of changing, even though the Vietnam War was on and all the rest of it. And one of the things that UFO had going for it, which was a shock to the system when you sit and think about it, was how the females were presented, particularly in what they wore. Now, we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, but we're sort of going to focus on it a little bit more, because even though the costumes were designed by Gerry Anderson, I think it's safe to say they knew what market they were looking at, right? And I think it's young males or adult males primarily at the time. And I think that was definitely the way sort of like promoted in the way the women were presented, and especially in their outfits. So we were talking about it earlier, and one of the things that I thought was interesting is, like, we got the whole thing with the purple wig. It's never explained why they wear the purple wigs, why they wear the cat suits, why they got all the makeup on their faces, but it was a thing for the show, and this is the one thing that everybody sort of identifies with UFO.
Yep, I just have to point out for Russell, yes, we were going to do UFO and Space 1999 on this show, so we're going to do this next week with Space 1999 as well. That's why there was some 1999 girls in that opening. What Dags has said is absolutely true. It obviously does appeal to the male eye, but the other thing at the time, there was a lot of women's lib and liberation, and it was also aimed at equality, and this was like girls who were confident in their bodies and themselves as well. So for some people, it's like this is why I have a fetish for purple wigs, and for other them, it was meant to be a sort of role model, and everyone was comfortable with their how they looked and with their bodies. And the other thing which I pointed out earlier, there were a lot of episodes where just as they're casually talking to other people, they will change. And I think they were trying to point out how futuristic clothing was, because it was like a paper doll where it snaps on and the next one, you know, snaps back on again and snaps off. And it was also one of those things, they did it in Starship Troopers as well, where male and female would just be so casual with that kind of thing around each other. I guess it was sort of viewed as a futuristic view of, hey, not everyone's sexist and not looking at this, which is interesting because it's a great way to put titillation in for a current audience by saying in the future, no one cares.
Yeah, you've touched on it, because it took me a while to work this one out. And I'm just going to go back to this original picture. Oh, sorry, wrong picture. That's the one I was going to show afterwards. Hang on. That one up there. So that's Shakira Kane up the top on the right here. That became Michael Caine's wife. So in this scene here, and it's an unusual scene. So Gay, I think her name is, changes her outfit on camera. And it's almost like, why is it the case? And you are correct. How do you change clothes quickly and easily? And everything sort of just pulls apart, and then you can put on another outfit really simply, because it's they spend a lot of time on that shot or that scene, and that's clearly what it was intended to portray. Even though when you're just watching it, I mean, it must be weird for the actress. You just stand there and they're just filming her changing her clothes. But yes, you are correct.
She was French. She was probably fine with it, but I think it's one of those things where they almost went with the Space 1999 look and aesthetic, but then the Barbarella sensibility, where you have sort of a very operational moon base, which is, they've tried to do it realistic on a TV budget, I guess. And then you've got Barbarella, who, you know, does almost a striptease on she does on the opening credits of the movie. And they've tried to skew somewhere in between with this. And the merchandise for this is incredibly popular. And you can understand why, because if you're a teenager, grew up with this, you're probably like, hubba hubba, this is exactly what I want out of my TV at the moment. But you will see, out of all the UFO autograph cards and things like that, who do you think goes for the most?
Yeah, exactly right. So,
yeah, you do wonder if they, with conviction, thought it was like modern, or they just were doing it for the buck. I don't know with UFO, I've got to say.
Yeah, I'm going to argue and say that it was a bit of both. And of course, it is a product of its time. If you were to do it today, you would do it completely differently, because probably by today's standards, some people be going, no, it's exploitive, even though it probably is intended to be that way, because once again, they know what their market happens to be. And hey, if you're a young dude, you're going to watch it because, hey, the women are appealing to look at. So, I
tell you what, if you put in Gerry Anderson's UFO and do a picture search, which I did looking for merchandise, the most popular pictures are all of the women in the purple wigs on the moon base. So it's obviously what people remember and search up the most. But it wasn't just the purple wig women. It was the whole aesthetic of the show was geared up with very, you know, cat suits, and the future was going to be very sexy, a lot sexier than it probably ended up being. And you know, obviously there's different photo shoots, but they got a lot of the actresses to get in the skin tight white suits and boots and go to the props of the computer banks and different futuristic places and take photos of them. So there was obviously that view in mind that this was going to do well in publicity in different types of areas than his other shows had done. And then there are a lot of other autographs from the cast, and a lot of the girls who were even minor characters back then have come back and done cast cards and autograph cards and stuff like that. So back then there was a popularity in this kind of merchandising, and it has lasted right through to now, where they are the ones that are constantly sought out by collectors and are the most popular at signings and things like that.
Yes, so it's it's had a good run, and everybody sort of knows about it, and it's been quite good. And that's actually the last of our pictures, Mr. Aaron. How about that?
There you go. I cut it down because I thought we were going to go for too long, and I could have spoke more about the Doctor Who figures, Dags. But
no, you couldn't. You got your own show for that, and let's just save it for that particular show. So, yes. Go on.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, this is the part first part of a two-part episode. We're going to be looking at Space 1999 next week, and also some fantastic models that Russell submitted on both shows. So we'll be looking at that, and the women of Space 1999 and some of the merchandise associated with that as well. So we've got a lot of stuff that's coming up on the next show. If you were hoping to see more of Moonbase Alpha and Michael Landau, tune in next week because we'll have plenty of them then. I don't think we'll have him in a purple wig though.
No, I don't think so. And but yes, if you do see a purple wig these days, a UFO is exactly what you think of first and foremost after 50 years, which is a pretty cool thing, I've got to say. So there you go. All right, we're going to buzz off and leave you to it. Go off and watch Andor and Tales of the Jedi, or if you want, go and look for a friggin' few Docky Who toys, you know. It's very, very exciting stuff. So, yes, don't forget the Who Report is actually on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. There's a lot to talk about. Not that I'm going to be talking about it, but Aaron and Greg certainly will. About the old who's who in the zoo, so to speak. And yes, we'll leave you to it. Otherwise, if you do have any UFO collectibles, whether they be aliens or humans or from Shadow, make sure you keep them all a mint in box, Mr. Aaron.
Or crack them out of the case if you've got one of those $9,000 AF graded banana cards.
Love it. All right, leave you to it. See you next week, guys. Have a good one.
Good night, guys.